Well, as Donald Trump prepares to move into the White House, he will not only have to figure out who will make up his cabinet, but also what to do about all of his business interests. The president-elect has a stake in more than 500 companies, more than anyone else ever elected to the presidency. More than half of Trump's businesses bear his name. The president-elect has indicated that he plans to transfer control of his vast business empire to his three eldest children. But is that enough? Let's bring back CNN politics reporter Eugene Scott and CNN political commentator Errol Louis. And I want to pick up, Eugene, where you left off at the end of the last segment. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, who are said to be now going to control the business interests with this executive team. They are also part of the transition team, and the obvious, I guess, difficulty that presents even before President-elect Trump takes office.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth noting that federal law does not say that these conflict of interest exists between a president and his business properties. But despite that, the Trump campaign has said that they do want to follow all regularities and things that require them to be as transparent as possible, and therefore vet possible structures that will allow the children to take over the business dealings that Donald Trump has been ahead of.
So, Errol, I went back and read this Anti-Nepotism Act back in 1967, enacted in part after JFK brought his brother in as Attorney General. And it says that relatives cannot work in that agency. But then there's the issue of Jared Kushner, the president-elect's son-in-law, who, when Dennis McDonough took a walk around the White House grounds, the chief of staff, he took Jared Kushner along. Does he fall under that? And could we see potentially his role in the Trump White House?
Yeah, he absolutely does fall under that. 5 U.S. 3110 is the statute you're talking about. And they define relatives. They have a whole list of, your mother, your son, your brother, and it includes son-in-law. So Jared Kushner is covered by that. That means he cannot take a dollar from the federal government. What he will be able to do, however, is act as an advisor, an unpaid, informal, non-staff member advisor to the president. And that seems to be the role that he's already been playing in the campaign. So the ins and outs of what job he holds, I think, are less important than the influence that he will have. And to get back to what Eugene was talking about, there are no laws that prohibit the business interests from just kind of being out there and known. There's been some talk about a possible quote-unquote blind trust, but nothing about the Trump organization lends itself to that. A true blind trust is when the principal, in this case the president-elect, the president, doesn't know what investments he holds. That the blind trust is sort of buying stocks and selling stocks and handling business interests that are unknown to the principal. That's simply not possible since Trump's name is splashed over most of the businesses that he controls. So this is a new era. This is going to be really quite different from anything we've seen before.
Eugene, let me ask you about some reporting from the New York Times. They spoke with a few Trump advisors about what will be potentially his living situation. If we have the full screen, let's put it up. If not, let me read it to you. Mr. Trump, who was shocked when he won the election, might spend most of the week in Washington, much like members of Congress, and return to Trump Tower or his golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey, or Mar-a-Lago Estate in Palm Beach on the weekends. First, how realistic is that? And that, if he were to go back to Trump Tower, where his business empire is headquartered, that would obviously present a conflict of interest, or at least the possibility of one.
I think that's just speculation at this point. I think Donald Trump realizes now, will soon realize, that this job entails a lot of working on the weekends. And a lot of that actually won't be either in D.C. or New York. It will be out in America and internationally as well. All of this reminds me of how when he was pitching the Trump Hotel in D.C., he made it very clear that he was going to get to D.C. by any means necessary. And the reality is he'll spend probably way less time in Trump Tower than he thought he would before.
Quickly, Errol, any chance that we're going to see Trump just living in the White House part-time and then going home to one of these properties on the weekends?
I think it's more likely than not he will spend as much time in the White House as his predecessors. The reality is, if you look back, the Obamas thought they were going to be running back home to Chicago once in a while. The level of security concerns, military concerns, the inconvenience to everybody just to move the family back and forth, it's really much easier to just stay in a place that is completely safe and secure and at the center of all American power, and that's the White House.
All right, Errol Louis, Eugene Scott, thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Christy?